Hi everybody. So this is a video that I've been wanting to make for a while because I think that one of the main concerns that composers like myself have when we're just trying to get started is the initial investment that you have to make in your setup, in your computer, your sample libraries, your DAW, all that. There's so much stuff out there that people are telling you that you need, and a lot of it's really expensive. It's hard to know what you actually need to get started. I see so many people on forums and in Facebook groups asking all these questions. What kind of computer do I need? What's the best DAW? What sample libraries should I get? And I've kind of come to the conclusion that there are three criteria that your initial setup should meet. The first is that it needs to be affordable, for obvious reasons. You don't want to be starting your career thousands of dollars in debt just trying to break even. And then the second is that your system needs to be capable of producing high quality music. You don't want people to hear your demos and be able to tell that it was obviously done on a cheap system. You want people to be impressed. And then the third thing is that your system needs to be upgradable. Hopefully at some point in your career you'll start making money and be able to invest some of that money into improving your setup. And at that point you don't want to just have to scrap everything and start over. It would, it's a lot better if you can just add to what you have rather than just replacing everything. So I've come up with a basic system that you can put together. And I think it meets these three criteria. It's affordable. You can do this for less than $1,000. It's very capable. You can produce high quality demos with this, and it's upgradable. All of these components can be incorporated into a much more expensive setup. So now let's go ahead and jump in and start looking at what's going to go into this setup. So the first thing we're going to look at is your computer. I think the best way to go is to start with a workstation PC that's used or refurbished and that you can upgrade with the specs that you need. So you can get something like this, the Dell Precision T5500, for about $130 on eBay. There are lots of other similar deals. You can look around and find the best deal. This one does not come with an operating system. So you might look around and see if you can find one that does, or you can just install the operating system yourself. There are tons of videos on how to do that. I'm not going to get into that in this video. And the next thing we're going to look at is the RAM. So sample libraries take up a lot of RAM. I would recommend starting with at least 32 gigabytes. You can get that again on eBay for $66, we'll call it $70. You need to make sure that it's compatible with your computer. You see this works with the T5500. And the next thing is the processor. Now, for what we're doing, what we care the most about is the number of cores. We don't care as much about clock speed or things like that. So you can get two Xeon 6-core processors for pretty cheap. They're a few years old, but if you look on eBay, you can find stuff like this for really pretty cheap. So if you get two of these, you'll be paying about $55. This is the E5649. This is what I have in my setup, and it works great. Now, the other thing you need to do is make sure that your your computer has two CPU sockets if you're going to try to do two processors. The T5500 does not, but you can buy this thing, which is just you install this and it has another CPU socket as well as a place for some more RAM, and that's another $80, and you can have two processors, and you've got 12 12 cores of processing at this point. And then you need some internal storage, of course. So sample libraries, again, can be really big and take up a lot of storage. So I would recommend getting at least a couple of terabytes. You can find a 2 terabyte SATA hard drive on eBay for about $55, or you might even be able to find one for less if you shop around. So we'll call it 55. And then another thing you might want to consider is a solid state drive. They're much faster than hard drives, but they're also more expensive. What I did with my setup is I got a regular hard drive. It holds 2 terabytes, and then I had just a couple sample libraries that were kind of struggling with that. And so I bought a small solid state drive and just put those libraries on that. Most of my libraries are still on my main hard drive, but I moved the ones that were having a hard time just to a solid state drives, and that totally fixed my problem. It runs great now. So that's it for the computer, and with all of that, we're looking at only $460. So I wanted to quickly compare that to what it would cost if you got a Mac Pro brand new with the same specs. So I went to apple.com, and if you get 12 processing cores and 32 gigs of RAM like we had, and then the most storage space you can get is 1 terabyte, so we'll go with that. And we're not going to worry about a mouse or anything or a keyboard. And with just that, you're looking at $6,200. And I realize it's kind of unfair because this is all new, and the stuff we were looking at was used or refurbished. But this, if you do the math, this is almost 14 times the price of the PC we're looking at. Now, maybe you're just really a Mac person and you can't work on anything else and you just have to have a Mac. There's another option. You might notice that I'm doing this video on a Mac as I'm telling you how to build a PC. So there's a program called Vienna Ensemble Pro that allows you to put your DAW, your sequencer, on one computer and put your virtual instruments on another computer, and then they're networked with an Ethernet cable. So I run Digital Performer on an iMac that I got off of Amazon. It was refurbished, it was a few years old. It's not super powerful, but it doesn't need to be because all of my sample libraries and virtual instruments are on my PC, which I just showed you how to build. And I have those over here in this program, Vienna Ensemble Pro. You can run Kontakt or any virtual instrument. I've got East West Play right here. And so my PC handles all of the heavy workload. So all my Mac has to do is just handle the MIDI, and if I record some audio, it does that. So it doesn't need to be all that powerful. So you can buy a fairly low-end Mac if that's the operating system you want, or if you're a Logic user and you have to have Mac for that reason. But you can still save money on all of this computing power. But for the purposes of this video, we're just gonna include the PC in our cost, because you don't actually need anything more than that to get started. Anyway, the next thing we're going to look at is a MIDI controller. So there are tons of different options for MIDI controllers. I mean, ideally you want something with 88 keys, but like I said, in order to get started, that's not really necessary. So here's something with 49 keys. You can even go smaller than that, but that's really small. This is $100. And you know, it's got, like I said, 49 keys, it's got a mod wheel and pitch bend and everything. Now there's a good chance that you already have a digital piano. That was what I had. I had a Yamaha digital keyboard that had a USB connection, and I was used to that. I was used to playing on that, and I didn't want to go spend a whole bunch of money on a new MIDI controller. The only downside was that my digital piano didn't have a mod wheel, and it didn't have any faders or anything that I could use to control expression and things like that. So I did some research and I found this thing. This is called the Nano Control 2. It's made by Korg. It's only $60 and it just connects with a USB, and you can map all of these faders to different CC controllers. So I've got my Yamaha digital piano that I input all my notes with, and then for mod wheel, for everything else, I just use this. I didn't have to go spend a bunch of money on a new full-size MIDI controller with all the bells and whistles. Now the next thing you're going to need is a sequencer or a DAW, and there are a ton of options out there. As I said, I use Digital Performer and I highly recommend it. I think it's one of the best DAWs on the market, but it is a little more expensive. It's about $500. So for this video, I'm going to recommend something a little cheaper. I recently heard of this DAW called Overture, and the great thing about this is it's only $250 and it doubles as a notation software. So it's a fully capable DAW. You can do everything you need to produce your music, and then when you need to get something recorded, you can do your sheet music as well. And then the last thing I want to talk about is sample libraries. So I think a great place to start is with East West's Composer Cloud plan. You can find this at soundsonline.com. It's a monthly subscription for $30 a month for their normal plan, and you get access to all of their libraries. And these are really high quality professional libraries. You get the full orchestra and a bunch of other stuff. Now again, if you're a student, there's a discount. You can get it for $15 a month and you get 7 libraries. So still, you'll have access to the full orchestra and a handful of other things that you can choose. If you don't want to go that route, you can also, there's a ton of other options out there. I really like Cinesamples. This is what I started with. You can get their Cinesymphony Lite package for $400, and this comes with just ensemble patches. So there's one patch for your strings and one for your brass and so on. And again, if you're a student, you can get it for 50% off for just $200. And like I said, there are a ton of other options out there, so look around. If I was starting right now, I would go with the Composer Cloud, just because it's really cheap. And the other great thing about it is that you only need to pay when you use it. So if you're not using it for a couple months, then just don't pay. So anyway, that's pretty much everything that you really need to get started. Now I know I didn't talk about audio interfaces or monitors or microphones, and those are important, but you don't absolutely need them to start working. I made money with my music before I owned any of those things. Anyway, I think this is a really great way to get started. It's, like I said at the beginning, it's affordable, it's capable of what you need it to do, and it's upgradable. If I was starting out today, this is what I would do.